Hey, hello everyone. This is Mark Ernstman of Korres. Thank you for joining us today for our webcast on taking your PMO to the next level. I'm joined today by Rafael Delgado. Rafael is our National Sales Manager, and he will be doing the majority of the presentation. Before I hand it over to Rafael, just a couple quick housekeeping items. One is regarding your viewing of the webinar. In your GoToWebinar interface, there should be a way for you to manipulate the screen size. Please go ahead and do that. We're going to be doing some slideware and such, some screen caps, and we want to make sure that you can see all the good stuff that we'll be showing today. The second item regards questions and answers. Within the GoToWebinar panel, you also have the ability to ask questions. So at any time during the presentation, please go ahead and type in your question. I will be monitoring those on this side. As they come in, I may respond to some as they come in. Others I may hold for the end of the presentation for the benefit of everyone in the crowd. Time you can type those in, and we will handle them accordingly. All right, well, without any more delay, I'm happy to introduce Rafael Delgado, who will take us the rest of the way. Rafael?
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. Thank you all for joining our session here today. We'll be walking through a brief company overview, letting you know where we came from and why we're here today, and then ultimately the revolutionary approach to the PMO and what has made us so successful recently. Korres actually started as far back as 2003. We got our wares in the SharePoint world, building web parts on top of SharePoint with a solution known as Korres Works. Anyone that is involved in the SharePoint community would probably recognize that name, one of the top 50 developers in the SharePoint world. Over the next 10 years of our company history, we actually spent most of that time delivering custom applications and really solving the most difficult challenges that organizations had. Most of those challenges seem to have focused around the PPM or Project Portfolio Management space. And what we were able to accomplish there was actually getting folks to deliver projects up to 80% faster. As Microsoft and other technologies that we were tied to made changes in their corporate strategy and began to migrate into the cloud, we understood as an organization that we didn't want to hold ourselves hostage to anybody else's development. And so what we did is actually created our own platform at that time, which is called Korres Now. That is a rapid solution development platform that enables us to still solve those extremely challenging problems for customers, and taking all of the history that we had and knowledge around the PPM space, we set out to create an out-of-the-box solution that was built from the ground up with the primary focus of revolutionizing the way that organizations managed their PMO today, and that solution is known as Korres Managed. The way that our solution is actually architected, it allows us, through our hub and spoke architecture, to connect to modern data sources, eliminating the need to rip and replace any existing technologies that corporations leverage today to manage their programmatic life cycles in the PMO, for example, or really in any other application development scenario. We can connect to modern data sources such as SQL databases, your Office 365 instance, even on-premises SharePoint, to include the only third-party connector that allows us to aggregate and leverage data both on-premises in SharePoint and any other data source you might have through our platform into that application. So you can truly get a holistic view of everything that you're doing in your organization through those projects by leveraging our technologies. Korres Managed, the out-of-the-box solution that we use for the PMO management, and or embedded into either environment. It is a standalone solution that can run in the cloud, it can run in a hybrid scenario, or it could run behind your firewall. Both of the technologies, to include SharePoint and the new .NET framework, can also be leveraged behind your firewall in a hybrid scenario or in the cloud. As we transition now into the out-of-the-box solution known as Korres Managed, and take a look at this really revolutionary approach that we've taken to managing the PMO, we begin by looking at some of the challenges that we have begun to understand from our customers in the 14 years that we've been doing this, of what were some of the very high-level strategic challenges that they faced in truly automating and managing their project management office. Most of it had to do around the side of how do we deliver repeatable governance? How do we ultimately then enable projects through that governance so that we can always deliver on our promise to the organization? How do we provide transparency throughout the organization? How do we ultimately provide visibility into the projects and the portfolios back through upper management, ultimately into the steering committees to make decisions around those projects and project enablement? Through regular communication with our customers, what we have come up with is what you are seeing now. We've touted it as the Project Management Office Lifecycle. Most of you on the call today would probably agree that if this is not the process you follow today, there is definitely some similarities here, or this might even be a nirvana state for you. Many of the customers that we work with today understand that the challenges they have in truly delivering this automated life cycle is the fact that at each one of the predefined boxes or stages, if you want to look at it that way, there are gaps between either their process or the technologies available in the marketplace today to ensure continuity between them. One of the largest gaps that we have found is in automating corporate governance into project enablement. The reason behind that comes from a few things, whether it's organizational change management and trying to ensure that things are always done the right way. How can we allow the organization to adopt and then ultimately adapt to the changes that we want to provide and to the governance that we're providing for them? And the reason behind all of that is usually the people. It's very difficult to herd cats, as one of our customers had told us recently. How do you ultimately get all of these moving parts to work in unison? How do you truly provide a collaborative workspace that everyone within the organization, regardless of where they are in the project or portfolio management lifecycle, can interact with each other to have that real-time data and information at the tip of their fingers? And so we'll start by taking a look at how we ultimately begin to solve that challenge. Again, taking a look at this from the eyes of the PMO, what we're going to see here is how the project management office or administrators or executives within this group are able to begin to build in the corporate governance or the framework by which then projects can be enabled from. What you're seeing now is a blank canvas in the user interface focused in the admin center or the PMO center. And what we're going to do here is actually start from scratch, and we're going to create what we call a process map. A process map, unlike the traditional hard-coded templates that you may be accustomed to today, is more of the swim lanes or the boundaries, if you will, by which any project can then fall into to ultimately allow you to feel comfortable and understand that they are still within the governed framework that you have laid out. As we start to set up the framework, we can look at it in a couple of different ways. Regardless of what type of methodologies you or your organization leverage today, or even the project managers, which might be project-specific leverage, whether that's Agile or Scrum, Waterfall, it really doesn't matter. You can create an infinite number of templates by which then they would ultimately be able to enable their projects, tasks, or activities from that would fall in line with the governance set forth by the organization. You can define within the framework such specific things as anticipated or expected duration of these types of tasks or activities. You can identify and assign relationships, parallel or serial, amongst different tasks or activities as well. Ultimately, what you end up with, again, is this high-level framework that says, from an organizational standpoint, if you are going to run, in this example, an enterprise services engagement project, this is the framework that we would like you to fall within. It ultimately still provides a tremendous amount of flexibility and tailoring at the project level for them to be able to put in their tribal knowledge within those specific projects while still ultimately adhering to the corporate governance. As we now look at taking a project in the traditional demand or intake process, for example, that most organizations leverage today, we have full capabilities built around that, as well as all the capabilities to create and manage your projects. And then ultimately through here, we're going to show a lot of the capabilities around the communication and collaboration as well. From an onboarding perspective, our solution allows for organizations to be truly collaborative. As you start to go through your demand process and individuals within the organization want to submit requests for projects, they can ultimately do that through here. As they begin to fill out forms that, again, can be pre-identified by the organization of all the different criteria that you'd like to collect in order to create a project, we can fill out an example as you see here on the screen. You can request such things as FTEs for the specific projects. You can assume budgets for that as well, request dollars behind that, start and end dates as well. And the other thing that you see is the comment section. By being a truly collaborative workspace for the organizations, you can have individuals from different functions of the organization all log in and collaborate through the project creation in order for all the voices to be heard as you start to push this project up the food chain. From an approval process, you can have it multi or single threaded approval process to perhaps have different stages of approvals as well before it finally goes into the budget analysis so that the organization can make the decisions around the go and no-go status of those projects. We have a full functioning demand and intake capability and module within here so that executives can actually make all of those decisions through the platform and ultimately enable projects directly from here as well to include budgeting and leveling the costs and expenses of the projects before you ultimately enact them as well. If we look at the top left now, it says Project Center. However, it is a very similar look and feel to the Admin Center we saw before. Our user interface is streamlined for business continuity perspective. So as folks perhaps change throughout the organization and move up the ranks, we try to keep everything in line so that the user interface is always intuitive regardless of who is logging in and out of the system. What we're looking at here is the view from the project manager's perspective now. The project that I have requested has been approved, and now I have to go in and start creating my plan. I'm going to create an enterprise services project, and what I'm doing is actually clicking here on where it says number 1 and picking from a predefined list of the frameworks for the types of projects that I might be looking to enable. I have selected the enterprise services engagement, and this is the framework that the PMO has laid out. I can modify this as necessary as a PM. For example, in this specific instance, the framework says that there should be 5 sprints is the ideal based on the corporate governance. I know that this is a much shorter project and I won't need 5 sprints. I will actually only need 3. As a PM, I can uncheck both of these tiles and they will no longer be a part of my framework. If in the discovery phase I know that I want to do a customer on-site and perhaps a survey, I can double-click and open up the form, and just like the PMO did, I can select from the predefined templates that are in there, or tasks, add those in, and now where it says 0, there would actually be 2 subtasks aligned to this specific activity. If I want to have the functional requirements matrix before the discovery, I would simply click on this, drag it in front, unclick it, and now it's changed. I can ultimately save this locally so that I can continue to modify it as necessary, building out my project plan, and then submit it for approval. As it goes through the approval process, similar to the demand or intake, again, single or multi-threaded approval, multi-stages as well, I would then get alerted once it comes back to say, yes, this has been approved within the governed framework of the organization. And I would simply click on the Build Schedule button. I would put in the start date of the project. And within 60 seconds, you now have an entire V1 of your project plan built instantaneously from the governed framework that was aligned by the PMO. This ensures that all the projects that are enabled are still following the governed framework that you've laid out, truly enabling corporate governance into project enablement and creation. What you're looking at is your traditional Gantt. From here, you can define the relationships similar as you did in the framework, again, parallel or serial. We have integration with Microsoft Project. So if you already have an existing project plan, we can import it into our solution. If your organization leverages Project heavily and you want to manage your project from there, you can export this into Microsoft Project as well. You can therefore manage the project in this traditional Gantt, as you see here. You could manage the tasks from the grid view on the left, and you could ultimately manage it from the task management view or the tile view that you had defined before as well. Once you create the project plan, these will be locked down, and when you simply double-click into them, what you're going to be able to do is then log the hours against that, complete tasks, and all of the traditional project management capabilities that you would have can now be done from this view as well. As we get into more of the capabilities around the project management side, we have a very robust project management solution built within this as well. Again, and trying to aggregate and consolidate all of the different types of things that a PMO would possibly be responsible for. We want to build that out in the platform. So continuing through that life cycle, one of the things that I want to highlight here specifically is around the risk matrix. The reason why we actually build out mitigation plans is because we know that risks could ultimately become issues. And in order for us to not have to duplicate efforts, what we've done in our solution is actually enabled a push-button escalation so that as you build out your mitigation plans, what you're able to do is in the event that one of those risks do become an issue, you can escalate it at the push of a button. All of the resources, assets, project plans that you have associated with that would then be transferred into and logged as an issue now so that you don't have to recreate any of the information that you had before. You could ultimately then send automated alerts to individuals or to groups of individuals within the organization once that happens. You can also collaborate through the system as we had discussed before. It's similar to Facebook or LinkedIn. You'll have all of the real-time updates populate within the solution. We're showcasing here the sticky note feature in our solution, which again you can attach to any data source within the solution. So in the example that you want to put a sticky note on a risk or an issue, an entire project, or an individual, you can do that. It's a threaded communication with timestamp capabilities into it. We do this for auditing and security reasons. Many of our financial and federal customers require this to happen. But one of the neat things that's recently come through in conversations with some of our prospects is the fact that because this timestamping is enabled in the system, they're actually finding creative ways to leverage some of the data that we're collecting in the system. For example, if we escalate this risk to an issue and it is timestamped as to when it happens and a notice gets sent out to the individual responsible for it, you can now begin to track the amount of time that it takes from when a risk becomes an issue to actually warrant a response, and many other creative ways of leveraging data in our system as well. All of the capabilities that you've seen so far, those are at a project level. Again, continuing through this life cycle and thinking about how we ultimately manage it in a holistic view and approach, everything you've seen so far is also available at a portfolio level. There are a few things in our portfolio capabilities that are unique to us that is also very robust, things that our customers tell us help them tremendously. One of them is the fact that we do both reported and computed or calculated KPIs in our system. You can run both of them side by side, and many of our customers do. The reason being is that, as we are probably all aware, if we only had reported KPIs, many times these reported KPIs are usually better than the situation is actually calling for. If we're doing computed or calculated KPIs, it's usually the opposite. What we found is that the delta between what the PMs are actually reporting and what the system is calculating, that delta is where the truth lies, and it allows for very intelligent and effective conversation by being able to match them side by side. One of the other things that came to light in one of our customers is an example that we're using here around the schedule. And this was one of the few times that we've seen where the PM is reporting the schedule as a high risk or red, and the system is calculating it as green. How could that be? Well, the PM knew something that was happening around the schedule that the system couldn't possibly calculate, and that was the 13 feet of snow that hit Boston about 2 winters ago, and many of the deliverables actually couldn't be completed in time, and the hardware for that project couldn't be received due to Mother Nature. This is an area where the system would never have calculated it or caught it, and as portfolio managers are just glancing through the KPIs in a computed scenario, they might not have raised that red flag. Again, being able to have that direct communication straight through our platform, doing the emails, threaded communication, or sticky notes, and having those alerts pop up. All of this information is aggregated through scoping of portfolios. In our system, you don't have to predefine portfolios. You can, and we can save those. But one of the really neat features of our platform is the fact that you can create dynamic portfolios on the fly. Due to the way that the data is actually structured on the back end of our solution, and regardless of where that data resides, to include SQL databases or SharePoint, you can scope into the exact scenario that you want, and all of the tabs that you previously saw around the KPIs, timeline, portfolio, issues or risks would ultimately then aggregate and reflect the information you've requested. So in real time, if I want to see all of the active projects that David Smiley is on, but that have a proposed start date of September, that are currently 10% over budget and are happening in the state of Montana, I can create compound and or complex queries against the data set of the portfolio. And then ultimately, when I hit run, all of the projects that roll up into that portfolio are scoped to reflect against all of the tabs. So no longer do you need to predefine all of the types of portfolios that you may ever need. You can do them instantaneously. This is where a lot of the reporting is usually done for our customers, because as you may have seen up at the top right, you can send directly to PDF or Excel, almost any of the screens that you've seen so far. So by being able to create that real-time holistic view from a portfolio level, you can ultimately then send that to PDF and create and email those reports if necessary. The other unique feature is the fact that a single project does not have to be tied to a single portfolio. You can have that truly cross-functional collaborative approach to project and portfolio management because you can have one single project attached to multiple portfolios. Through the security trimming in our solution or with direct tie-ins to any Active Directory that you may have today, you can limit and scope that individual user based on the rights that they have. Now that one single cross-functional collaborative project that may involve manufacturing, IT, finance, human resources, and sales, they can all have access to the project data across their own portfolios that they want to see, scoped specifically to the data without you having to tag that specific project to any single portfolio. Finally, as we continue to roll our way up into the automated reporting and briefings, we find that many of our customers are doing, whether they are monthly or quarterly business reviews or steering committee meetings for updates on projects and portfolios. The way that many of them are doing it today, probably similar to how you guys are leveraging your technologies today as well. We leverage Microsoft Project. We leverage a project management solution. We might even have a separate portfolio management solution. There's a document repository in Google Drive or in SharePoint. We have Excel spreadsheets. What ends up happening is that ultimately when you're creating these briefs, you're going into a solution similar to PowerPoint. It may even be PowerPoint, for example. And you're copying and pasting the graphs, the charts, the updated notes, the visualizations that you need in order to present your updates. The challenges around that is that for the most part, that data is not real time. If you're taking a snapshot of something at 8 in the morning to present it to in the afternoon, it's not real time. What we're able to do in our solution is we've actually created a briefing center that allows our customers to come in, and initially when we set up the solution, we'll work with you to get these done, is to recreate your briefing in the exact format that you are comfortable and leverage today within your organization, to include all of the charts and all of the graphs and visualizations and fonts and formats and styles that you and the executive team are used to. We will recreate that in our solution. The critical difference here is that just like the portfolio that we went through now where you can dynamically scope it, at the push of a button, all of the data that you would normally manually key in or copy from different data sources gets aggregated dynamically into the briefing. In this example, DISA, Defense Information Systems Agency, one of our largest customers, uses a traditional quad chart format for briefings. All of the information that would reside inside of these tiles, some of them are graphics, some of them are direct financial information being pulled from the systems, would aggregate through the platform into these specific cells so that at the push of a button, any of the generals or the appointed executives within DISA are able to run these briefs. Last year alone, we were able to save them over $2 million and thousands of hours just in the briefing example because of the fact that they would go through a week-long exercise where every 15 minutes a different project manager would come in and update on the status of the projects. They are now able to dynamically create these briefs at an executive level and only call in the individuals as necessary as opposed to having to go through the entire exercise. As dynamic and real-time as this is, we understand that that also poses a challenge perhaps at times for businesses. What you're able to do is also take snapshots of these and freeze them in time. So you can do week over week or month over month comparisons. You can also snapshot this first thing in the morning so that you can review the information then and ultimately present it in the afternoon. and or create those dynamic scoped portfolios on the fly and briefings. When we talk about visualization and reports, any kind of report or problem, business challenge that you face today, we can solve through our platform and our technology. We have over 14 years of experience, specifically in the PPM and PMO Lifecycle management space. We have worked with thousands of customers around the globe to solve these challenges. The reason why we've been able to do this and why our solution is able to do it faster, better, and cheaper than anybody else in the marketplace today is because of the unique way that we were built. Having the capabilities of the design canvas behind our platform and ultimately behind our Korres Managed application, we are able to instantaneously change the look and feel of the solution regardless of the requirements. So in this example, we are actually in the design canvas of the Korres Managed application. What you as a user, or ultimately through our help, could do, whether it's through the initial setup phase or as your business changes, because again, what we want to ensure is that our software and solution can be flexible and agile and nimble enough to grow and mold with your business needs, as opposed to you having to change or fix the way that you do business to fit the rigid structures of the traditional software solutions that are in place today. And so, for example, let's say that in the future you did not want schedule to show up under the managed view. You would simply uncheck this box, publish the changes, go back to the application, and that tab is gone. No longer do you need to do coding, have time spent and resources spent and money spent on changing and updating the system. If you wanted expenses to be budget, double-click, change to budget, save it, publish it to the app, go back and it's changed. You can also do individual security trimming directly through our solution, as I mentioned before, and that would be allowing individual users or individual groups of users to see very custom, unique views within the solution itself to limit or restrict access to certain pieces of data. You can also create your own unique views, your own unique forms. So if there was anything that you've seen today that perhaps isn't exactly the way that you do business today, it is very simple for us to actually modify and change any of the forms, the colors, the tabs that you saw through a drag and drop configuration. We can connect the external documents, as I mentioned before, whether it's an on-premises SharePoint, Google Drive, for example, in the cloud, or even your Office 365 environment. We can create any of those custom charts and forms as well, change the page layout to include colors and fonts. And lastly is the extensions. We do make available the full code to our platform and our application so that if you have developers that want to extend the capabilities of our solution to do such things as tie into other applications that you have, or perhaps create some sort of automation process through a existing business process management solution that you have, we have done those types of integrations and make the code fully available on the back end to be able to work with you to ensure that that's a success. As we come back full circle now, no pun intended, I apologize, we are looking now again at this life cycle, being able to cover everything from aligning the strategic objectives of the steering committee or the organization directly into the corporate governance set forth by the PMO, truly being able to deliver corporate governance into direct project enablement through an automated process of simply clicking on the process map and kicking off the entire project schedule. Being able to manage cross-functional collaborative projects in an easy-to-use, intuitive fashion, regardless of whether it's in our solution or other solutions you leverage today, ultimately aggregating that information into a truly holistic portfolio view, truly understanding what type of information do I need in real time, how do I ultimately get that regardless of where that data sits, that holistic view of all of the projects and portfolios in the organization. being able to, at the push of a button, create any type of transparency, whether that's a report, a visualization, or even a brief to executive management or a steering committee, again, being able to showcase all of the value that the PMO is adding to the organization, and then coming back full circle again so that the steering committee will be able to engage with you in the new direction, new process, new steps that they would like enacted to ultimately drive the business forward. Out of the box, our solution is able to handle, as you've seen today, 75 to 80% of any of the requirements that you might have. That's how we're able to drive a very unique solution in such a short amount of time for organizations at pennies on the dollar of anything that exists today. This was a high-level overview of our project and portfolio management solution. Would definitely welcome a deeper dive for anyone that is interested. Again, my name is Rafael Delgado, and I am the sales manager at Korres. My email is on there, as well as our sales email. That concludes my portion of the presentation, and we'll open it up now to Mark and questions. Thank you all for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Rafael, for walking us through Korres Managed. Well done. We had a few questions roll in while you were going through that presentation. I will answer the first one here, which was regarding is the presentation being recorded today? And yes, we did record the webinar. So if you're on the line today, you will receive an email from us tomorrow, probably about 24 hours from now, with a follow-up email as well as a link to the recording. So you'll be able to have that. You can share it with colleagues, whomever you choose to around your organization. So we'll have that out to you within the next day. All right, Rafael, I had a couple other ones roll in as well. The first one was relating back to the process map and the ability to create, the standard process. And they're asking, they have, different processes based on a business unit or based on other variables within the organization. Is the process map able to create multiple maps?
That is a great question. So the answer to that is yes. We can create multiple maps. You can actually even create maps within maps. And so if you recall back in the example, we had the sprints, right? And most of the folks in the IT world will know exactly what that is, and even in the PMO. You can create a process map for a sprint so that you still have a very repeated type process within that. And again, thinking back on the different types of methodologies, whether it's waterfall or Scrum or Agile, you can create process maps for the same function in different ways as well, so that ultimately you can enable different types of methodologies through the process map, regardless of whether it's a geographic separation, a business unit separation. You can also even limit it to specific users. And so if you want to create process maps detailed enough just for a specific user and make that available only to them, you could do that as well.
Excellent. All right. For those of you still on the line, if you want to type in a question, we've got a few more here to go through, so we'd be happy to entertain one if you would like to enter it. Okay, Rafael, I have another one here that relates to thresholds. And basically, is there a limit to the number of projects or portfolios that Korres Managed can support?
Sure, and that's a great question. I find that question comes up often when folks are thinking about the cost of a solution, and so I'll touch on that in just a second. The answer to us is no, because we leverage a truly open architecture and Mongo, M-O-N-G-O, MongoDB as the database on the back end of our solution. It's infinitely scalable. It's actually one of the most rapid and agile platforms and databases in the marketplace today. So you can have an infinite number of projects and portfolios in our solution. We also do not price our solution based on the number of projects or portfolios that are managed. What we do license on is based on the number of unique users that are actually accessing the system.
All right, fantastic. I have one here around integration and reporting. And basically the question is, are you just pulling that data and reporting against it, or are you actually able to work with the data in the full read-write capacity?
Can you ask that one more time? I actually had a question pop up on my screen while we were doing that. One of the kind of veered me off. I apologize. What was that again, Mark?
Yeah, no problem. The question was regarding the integration. Are we just pulling that data in for reporting and visualization, or are we actually able to work with that in a read-write capacity?
No, that's a great question. I apologize that I didn't make that clear. So through our extension and the connector framework that sits underneath the platform, so if we think about that open architecture, and I call it the fidget spinner graphic that we showed on the second or third slide, if you want to think about that as more of a sandwich, where you have Korres Managed, the application we showcased at the very top layer, directly underneath that is the Korres Now platform, or that rapid solution development platform that allows us to do all these great customizations and configurations to be agile and nimble for you. Underneath that are the tentacles that allow us to have direct API integration with read-write capabilities into most of the modern data sources today. So we have integrations with things like Salesforce and Jira and Microsoft Project and others. If there is a traditional database or a modern database or data source, we can usually do direct read and write access into it. It would all depend on exactly what that is. But yes, traditionally it is full read and write capabilities as long as the API is open and available to us.
All right, great. So since we just had a fresh one pop up on our screen, let's address that one, Raphael. And it's basically asking, what's our experience with the time it takes to get up and running, even if it's just a smallish company with just a few projects?
Absolutely. And I'll address that with our largest, most complicated implementation, which was actually to get over 2,000 users and a few hundred projects. They total about $4 billion worth of projects into our solution. That took us just under 90 days. So our traditional pilot is actually a 2-week enablement for our customers, and we're able to get the system up and running in very short order. Again, thinking about how this is stood up, it's an instance that can be set up in the cloud. So as long as we then have that license key open, what you would do is simply log in and the platform would be available. Our traditional enablement at that point would be usually a couple sessions with one of our PMs and architects to better understand your business and the style of projects that you have. Again, we can ingest existing project plans from Microsoft Project. And so the fastest that I've seen it is in about 72 hours for just 2 projects. But again, we've done hundreds of projects for thousands of users and billions of dollars worth of projects managed in less than 90 days. So it's very, very short order to get it up and running.
All right, one final thing here, Raphael, then we'll call it a wrap. Kind of building on that one, what are the various deployment options? You just mentioned a cloud. What are the other options for a prospect?
Absolutely. So we can run it in a secured cloud environment, whether it's Azure, which is native to us, or AWS. We can run it in a hybrid scenario where perhaps you have some of the data sources on premises and some of the data sources in the cloud, and we can be an intermediary or an aggregator amongst both of those. We can also deploy it directly behind your firewall so that you have it completely cut off from the outside environment. We've also done scenarios where we're running in a hosted environment through a third-party data center for customers. So it's truly done as a service in that capacity. Regardless of how you ultimately want to run the software, we enable you to be able to do that. And so ultimately, actually that brings up a great point, Mark, because I had a conversation with someone earlier today as well. Because of the fact that we can do hybrid scenarios both on premises and in the cloud, what we're working on with some of our customers even is outside of the PMO here is modernizing some of the applications they have and helping them migrate and transition into the cloud. So knowing that that's a huge initiative for a lot of these organizations, our platform allows them to instantaneously have workloads available in the cloud through a modern application. Again, imagining that if we're able to stand up thousands of users and hundreds of projects in 90 days, we're able to take a lot of the data that you might have on premises today, create a modern web-based application for it, and then ultimately store the data into the cloud. So we can help with a lot of corporate initiatives around IT modernization as well and data migration.
All right. Excellent, Raphael. Thank you. That's it for the questions. So thank you for handling those, and thank you for the wonderful presentation that you did this afternoon. As I mentioned, we will be sending out a link to the recorded webinar. You should have that in your inbox within the next 24 hours or so. Again, Raphael, thank you so much for taking the time to lead us through that. And to everyone on the line, thank you for taking the last 45 minutes to spend with us. We know you have a lot of competing priorities in your day, and we're very appreciative that you chose to spend the last 45 minutes with us. So if you have any more questions, if you're interested in more information, you can certainly follow up with Raphael, or we'll be in touch as well to see if there's anything else we can do. Again, thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you all.